All right. Let's talk about the balance change that just got released. Um, I just want to give my thoughts on it. Um, in my opinion, they could have waited and did some additional increases. Now, I don't think they posted what the costume bonus stats. Um, oh, they did for Springvale. Okay. 15, 15, 20. Considering, unless they're planning to do double costumes, I'm not sure why they didn't bump these to like 30, 35. Being the fact like the double costume season ones are getting like 40% or like these ridiculous gaudy numbers that make the season one costumes usable in the meta. On top of that 75% resist passive that they have, I think they could have done a better job stat wise at this point to get the older heroes that most people typically have. Allow them to kind of reutilize that. Like most people have stripped like emblems off of those heroes, just because like they just don't compete at all in the meta. So that number of um, you know 10% increase, and 15% increase. Or is it no? Is it 10 across the board? 10, 10, yeah, 10, yeah, just about 10 across the board is negligent. Um, because on a double limit broken hero, you know, their stats is still like about 300 points off where the current new heroes are. You know, 100 points off. At 1200 or so, fine. I think 1150 is a bit of a stretch. Um, but you really wanted them to be somewhere over 1200 to be able to compete in the meta. So very disappointed. Heroes of the month. Uh, Delilah's heal should have bumped up a little bit more. Um, Specifically considering that she has the most support usability out of um, this group. Um, you know, the 20% minion is pretty. It's decent and it's strong, especially if you pair her with the legendary troop, and stack a lot of HP. Those minions are going to be bulky. However, you can deal strategies still work against her. You can use Grimble and Topaz and other minion removals to kind of get rid of the minions. But if you don't have any of those and kind of catches you off guard, they're really, really, really bulky, and with her heal, kind of gives a lot of survivability to the team. But if you decide to tank her, all the same strategies still apply. Like you just keep sending tiles into her. You allow her to heal. You allow her to put up all the minions. Use Grimble. You destroy all the minions. Get a lot of mana for the whole team, and then you just wipe out the entire team. So like nothing changes in how you would execute her. Um, if you're facing her on a defensive team. From an offensive standpoint, she just gives a lot of survival to your team. Being able to block. I don't think there's a lot of defensive heroes that are also minion removers that people put on their teams during the meta. So not sure if you're gonna see her, but on the offensive side, at least you'll be able to um, use her to kind of just block damage, mitigate, heal, and kind of keep your team alive for the duration until you could get some tiles on the board. Frida used to be one of the most coveted heroes for me. I had King Arthur, and she's a hit 3 elemental down hero. This update with no stats added to her to her card is, very underwhelming. Like, great, 30%, but it's very underwhelming. Like, it does nothing for her. Her damage doesn't change. She's still gonna just be somebody to use for a setup, do the elemental down, and then bring in your bigger hitters to finish. 30%, a little extra juice, but nothing to really fret about. Expected them to kind of give some of these guys, if they're not getting costumes, they should have gotten in my opinion, should have gotten some stat buffs. Same thing for Teleria. 15% on her inherited HP is underwhelming. Should have been up to 25. They should have copied, leave the direct damage alone, and should have just copied the and actually switched the heal back to a percentage heal that she had originally, I think, when she came out, and then give her something along the lines of the Lila costume in terms of the minions. Bump it up to about 20%. See the costume here. I don't think she's gonna get a costume, so 22%. Or 30% to give her more survivability. But again, they've already fixed her meta that she was the queen of, where same strategy applies. You can eat 150, special several times, let her heal because it's not an overheal, and then you wipe out the minions, charge everybody, wipe out. Her strategy doesn't change. Melusina, I have multiple copies of her. I've never leveled her. I know a few people who have, but she's never been a threat at all in the meta. So just giving her, I guess, a stat boost is pretty much all that we're doing. This is, to be quite honest, just practically useless. Nothing about the hero really changes at all. As far as I'm concerned, if you have those heroes and they're already leveled, you could use them without any of these buffs, and they perform pretty much the same, in my opinion. Zarog, minor increase, but again, he's a sniper with the legendary troops. The damage is decent, but is no different from the updated version of him. I don't remember the red one that does the same thing as snipe and steals the special skills and the mana. So again, nothing's changed from the hero. I mean, if you're using it, you can still continue to use it. Okay, it's a little bit more of a damage and a little bit more of the mana gained, but now it's a 1 out of 4 instead of a 1 out of 5. Worthless, again, in my opinion. Gillian was really, really niche. There were a lot of teams going out with Gillian countering Ferdinand from the pets, kind of where he strives on those big buffs. Same thing for Granny. He counters that very well, but he's slow. Granny speeds up that team, the defensive team. So, I just wouldn't recommend using him. But again, it's a big buff for him, and he's at least more recent than the other heroes. And yeah, I guess they looked at, a bunch of people had leveled him, so he got something that's usable, and he's usable in very fast wars. I think that's where he's really going to shine with this buff, especially with the legendary troops. For 350 is pretty decent. Stats are low, but I think in a legendary, with the legendary troop and in the very fast war, he's going to be amazing. And I think out of this entire list so far, he and Delilah got the best buffs so far. Ninjas, this was like, it's safe to say that the ninjas aren't going to get costumes at this point, right? They could have made with, again, stat boost and the special boost. They could have just put Garnet's health to 250. the second charge to about 600, another one to 1,000, just to make her bulky because, again, she charges pretty quickly. The first charge is mm, the first charge saves you about a hit. But most people use her for the secondary effect of status ailment block. Cobalt, Onyx. Onyx is a dispeller, but I think they could have just they should give them just stat boost. I think the numbers aren't bad, but the numbers combined with the poor stat numbers that they currently have is useless. They could have also just changed them to AoE effects like the newer ninjas are, which will give them a little bit more usability, and kind of get people to kind of pull them out of their archive for a lot of people who have these heroes. But you've done nothing to add them back into the meta with these balances. Like there's nothing in this balance update that I would say, hey, if you haven't used them before, you weren't using them before, time to like pull them out. Perseus, when he's got his costume and they got balanced for that group, they got a stat buff. They have all these things that added and contributed to them kind of being pulled out and put, and out of your, the closet and back into the meta. And people started using them on attack teams, and some you can use on defense teams as well. This underwhelming. If I had to give this a grade for this balance update, I would give them, practically a D minus, only because there's literally there are two heroes in here that I don't have Delilah. And I didn't level my Gillian, Gilligan, so like this doesn't benefit me, but I do acknowledge that those are probably the two best heroes that got some subsequence of an update that's now usable, that you can kind of just dust off the old shelf and bring them back onto some attack teams, and Gilligan for very fast war on defense and offense. So yes, it's a D minus grade for me. Small Giants, you guys need to do a lot better with these balance updates, for the simple fact that we haven't gotten one in so long, and this is what you guys decide to produce out for the player base. So just my thoughts. Leave your comments below, if you agree, disagree, and also suggest like what heroes you guys think we should kind of post on the forum for balance updates and stats updates. I personally think they should start to push out a mandatory 10 to 15%, more or less 15% stat increase for 5-star heroes that are older. We don't need them to be the same as the current meta, but we need them not to be so far behind, because if they're not going to release costumes for those heroes, like they're just falling to the wayside, and everybody wants to use the heroes that they summon for and they spend their their budget on, just not to have them sit around here and just be completely inefficient. So just my thoughts. Thanks for watching, guys.